Did I not call this?
special.
I've been saying it.
You've been saying it.
And we
It's
and we
true.
knew this was coming, and then we saw it, and we're like, this is exactly what I told you was going to happen. It is the first true MMO.
Check the receipts. We got it.
Yeah, the first true MMO that is now officially truly combined with the survival genre.
Yep.
And a few other aspects that we can talk about too. But I mean, and even straight from the developer's mouth, they said they got a lot of their inspiration from Star Wars Galaxies.
Yeah.
And for you and anyone who's watched this knows that I Star Wars Galaxies is the highlight of my gaming career. I've never had more fun, never been more immersed, and just that feeling of awe that Galaxies brought. So seeing all these things, I'm definitely more excited than I was when we first saw the announcement of this. The potential is just truly exceptional here. Like they could, if this turns out right, if all those starting puzzle pieces are good, then I think we're onto something now. The next evolution in MMOs.
Yeah, no, I saw a lot of things that look really interesting. I see a lot of games kind of at work in different styles of game, kind of like the Battlefront with Star Wars, kind of that like vastness on certain maps. They're trying to introduce the player versus player. I can see Anarchy Online. I can see the Conan Exiles. I see the Planet side. It's almost like they've combined all these devs. I'm just interested in how that survival aspect is going to play in because I didn't see a lot of that compared to everything else. So I'm kind of excited to kind of see where they're going to go with that.
Yeah,
And
it's
Chase.
such a new. Before you go to Chase here, I'm sorry, but that adding that new layer to all of those MMOs that have had their place in time, and bringing all of those together now with that survival layer it's not only a huge feat that they're doing, but it can be so unique in a way that we've not seen yet.
Yeah.
And before I jump to you, Chase, I do think that's interesting, Scott. It just brought up something that I want to get out there.
Chase, clearly our points are better than yours, so we're just going to push it down.
All right,
kick that can down the road.
No, I just don't want to forget this thought because I think maybe too it's interesting that they're going back to this sandbox survival. If that World of Warcraft wouldn't have blown up as much as it did, would we have gotten here sooner?
That's a whole other video, man. Wow.
I don't know. That seems likely to me. Maybe if Sandbox would have been able to continue to grow, the way it was with SWG, but then WoW just like took everything by storm, and then all the clones were WoW clones, instead of doing something. Anyway, I'll edit that and put it in another section where it fits. Chase, what did you think, man, when you saw it? Is it the MMO of your dreams, or is it we don't know enough information yet? We need some more.
It's the first, because I'm a big Dune fan. I grew up reading the books, and it's such a cool universe to kind of base it out of, and the survival aspect is the epitome of what it should be, and they've done, and it seems like they've done this. And if they can, it's an ambitious project. Like, this is genuinely one of the most insanely ambitious projects I've seen, and for them to call it, from what I saw in the footage, I'm having a real hard time defining whether or not it is a true, what someone would call a massively multiplayer online. Is it 100 people? Is it 500 people? Is it 10 million people, in one server? The scope of this game does look very large. I played all the original RTSs, from way back in, I think, the early 90s. I read all the books. I mean, good and bad, from the first one. Herbert was just brilliant. So if they can get to that level, I'm going to be losing thousands of hours into this game. So super excited, but I don't want to get overly excited because they can do a lot of wrong.
You make a great point, Chase, which there may never be another IP that's more well suited for like a survival MMO.
Yeah,
like it just makes too much sense.
Yeah.
And even the foresight, I think, because obviously games take a long time. The first movie was out what, like 2 years ago? Like they've been in development of this game before the
Well,
You mean
reboots
the
came out.
current, like the most
The
recent
The
current,
one?
the
current.
current
Yeah.
iteration. Yeah, if we want to go back to the Sting days of the '80s, that was
Yeah.
No,
that was a
but
fun
what I
ride too.
mean
But
is whoever
Yeah.
is piloting this ship was
Mhm.
like, "Hey, we need to get the game development started now
Yep,
before the movies come out." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
yep.
And they thought, "Hey, what type of game goes with this
hmm
story?
It's interesting.
Survival MMO." And I think they
hmm
nailed it in theory, obviously.
I would buy that,
Um,
Tom, because Funcom, I wasn't too familiar with them, but
mm,
they have quite the resume.
They do.
yeah.
So that
Conan Exiles was a blast.
it,
So
it definitely makes you step back and second guess your instant pessimism, like,
hmm
this is going to be
Mm.
trash, and then you think Dune, and then you see a company with that resume, and then
hmm
it,
Yeah.
it quickly switches to optimism. Like this really does have potential.
Well, let's get into it then. Sandbox survival, right? I think
Yeah.
a lot of times these days, and I touched on it a little earlier with World of Warcraft. I think a lot of times when people hear sandbox now, they're like, oh, PvP,
mm.
griefing, like internal politics in the game.
Oh yeah.
Like it's just not casual friendly, maybe.
Mm.
But I don't know. I think there's a chance for them to get it right. But let's start with survival first.
Mm.
Yeah.
So they're trying to marry the two. I think it's a fine balance, right? Because
Yeah.
you don't want it to be so hardcore that it's going to push people away, because I'm that guy. I don't want a super hardcore survival experience, I want just enough to make it relevant with the group. What do you guys take? Cuz I know Scott, Chase, you guys are more survival players than me. What are your thoughts on how hard should they go on the survival aspects with this?
I agree with you. It
Yeah.
has to be moderate. I think games like Enshrouded and Valheim are my standard for how survival I'd prefer a game to be. It's just enough to be something that you have to keep track of, but it's not so tedious that it would detract from any other
Yes.
aspect of the game.
Yep.
So if they can create that balance as almost like the looming feeling with the sandworm always present,
Yes.
like
I
that
was.
gives you enough of that conscious anxiety to know that you just got to
Yes.
keep up with that.
The
That's the cool blending of the two, is it adds that other layer.
Mm.
yeah. I think the fact that you can't take out the sandworm keeps
Yeah,
that
that part's cool.
insanity. You can kill the baby sandworms, but you can't kill the big baddie. Like
Yeah,
that's like
yeah,
you have to constantly be on rocks,
yeah,
just like you are in the books, and it's just it's that subtle reminder of that this is a survival game. I think moreover than constantly reminding you, oh, don't forget to drink water, don't forget to eat
yeah,
food, don't forget to do this. Like it should be in a form of it gives you a perk
yeah.
or well, and I think as long as you're in your suit, you are sweating and, getting nourished.
I think when it comes to survival games, what I always end up doing the same thing. I always end up having my own server or join a server where everything's like 1.5 times faster or 2 times
Hmm.
faster because of like there's not enough people to interact. There's crazy timers like, do you want to wait 8 hours for this thing or do you want to wait like 20 minutes? And so I think that's what it always ends up going to for me, because most survival games are either single player or like play with like 6 friends. And if you want to really have a good time, all 6 of those people have to be in at all times in order for you to really have that experience. And so
Yeah.
I'm
It's
hoping
true.
that they get that part right. And that's what I really want to see from it is I don't want to have to go and like my whole time is like I have to go get water. I have to be in the shade. I have to do this. I want to be enjoying the game. And that's like more of an afterthought of like, oh yeah, let me just go grab something to eat real quick, like keep my buff up and go from there. I don't want it to be something that detracts from the game. And so I'm hoping it doesn't do that,
Mm.
because I like to be in and I want to be playing the game within like 5 minutes of where I want to be. I don't want to take 30 minutes to get somewhere to enjoy, for the next several hours. I want to like be in and out because of the lifestyle I have now.
I want to quick touch on a few things before we get to the concerns, because there are some concerns. Even the dev diary didn't show a whole lot. Like it didn't
hmm
show a lot of combat. It didn't show some things. So there are some things I want to talk about. But James, you said something that stuck out to me earlier, and I'm gonna use my experience with Enshrouded to talk about to intro this. Right, I jumped in with you guys on the Enshrouded server, the Bad Cuz Dad Enshrouded server, and I played for maybe almost a week, a handful of days, and I was just really bummed out with the combat. You know what I mean? It was so simplistic. Scott even said this. I saw like the bar where you could put all your potions and stuff, and I was like, "Oh, abilities are gonna go there." I was like so hyped.
Yeah.
And then we got in the skill tree, and it was like all passives, and I was like, "Oh, this is." I'm just gonna swing my axe over and over.
Keep chopping away.
So that's been my experience with survival games, right? Super simplistic combat. But James, you were like, wait, I saw this trainer or this skill tree. Were you impressed with kind of the RPG elements? Because I think that's what I've wanted in survival, more of the MMO stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I was interested to see like they have all these trainers across the world. Like they're like, you can use the voice, you can use be like a sword person, you can be a person that has a grappling hook that jumps up and then can like scout stuff, or you can be someone that's just this great blade master. So I'm really curious to see how that's gonna go. And even if they add like just minimalistic skills like New World, for example. Just those like 3-4 abilities that are key abilities, and they can just pepper in some of that. Like I wouldn't even mind that as long as it's like a solid like 4 to 6 abilities. I mean, I'm used to the 20 different ones, but I mean, New World proved that you only need really 6 if you can and still be engaged as long as there's a good feel to everything. So that's what I'm kind of hoping for.
Yeah, I mean, again, I go back to Planet Side, right? I mean, there's just so many parallels, but they've mentioned there's going to be your hand-to-hand combat, your ranged combat, and then vehicle combat. So it has to be action-based. I mean, they haven't said one way or the other, but if you're going to have guns and abilities, I think it has to be. So that does have me excited, like to be able to choose my path, my play style, the way I want to do it.
But the voice is going to be interesting. How they're going to are we going to be Dovahkiins now? Or are we just going to go around like dotting people, or are we just going to tell someone to come closer, we can stab them like they say in the video? I don't know.
And the potential of vehicles.
Yeah,
I don't know, man. Riding a freaking sand jet ski. Sign me
Remind
up.
me about that too, because I have a concern.
Ornithopter.
Okay.
Yeah.
Let's go.
I just remember our days from PUBG and thinking, what a great vehicle driver. Like what a person to have on your team.
I don't want to brag,
so
but
I can't wait.
I was like the transporter.
All right, well, let's jump into some of the concerns because I actually, I watched a lot of videos on it. I watched Force, of course, do his video. And the top comments were all super negative comments.
They were
like, oh, Funcom sucks. Oh, this is going to be terrible. You can't nobody likes Sandbox anymore. You know what I mean? All this stuff. And I was like, it was kind of wild to me because I thought every MMO player, I think, should be rooting for this game, right?
Yeah.
But there are some concerns that they haven't showed a lot about combat. So that is obviously going to be a big one, but we just won't know. And they have some time to iterate. For me, the big thing is how hardcore the survival is going to be. And then how do you make it approachable to casual players, right?
Yeah.
I think a great place they started is they're going to have some safe zones, it sounds like. So it sounds like you can choose to build your base in a safe area, or you can take it out into the open world, maybe where you can get back from your, where you're trying to get your spice and get it back. But I think then it can also be destroyed. Your bases could be destroyed by the worms or the sandstorms. And I think that's you got to have casuals who can come play, right? And I don't know, any other concerns from you guys?
But what I'm looking at it as how deep is the trade system going to go? Is there going to be like an EVE Online level of, systems involved? Is there going to be like an actual like living, breathing spice trade that's involved in this? Like, because if they're going to really connect with that element of, this interstellar conflict, these bureaucracies that are built around it, they have to connect those dots because that's the reason why Arrakis is so sought after, is because of the spice, and it goes beyond that, but I mean, I'm going to try to keep it simple, but it's that connection, that thousands of years connected to that planet and the reasons why, and then also having to go off planet to get it off the planet, because it'll be interesting to see where they go and how deep it actually runs, because it is a deep. There's so much deep lore there, and I know that's something that has been inherently missing in so many MMOs.
Yeah, I don't see us going off of Arrakis, to be honest.
No.
Like
Yeah.
I don't. They haven't hinted at it. That doesn't mean we won't. What my guess is how they're going to address that is because they have mentioned being different political factions, and they made it almost seem like a rep grind, right? Like you can level up with whatever, and I'm assuming there's going to be like a spice trader group that you can level
like
up and maybe and do the more of the on planet side of that kind of planet side, that kind of stuff. And so that's how I think they'll do it. Obviously, we don't know for sure yet.
That's how it'll definitely start.
My other big concern is the Zerg.
Yeah.
Like, how are they going to stop just massive guilds from controlling everything? What kind of perks are they going to give to small groups? Will there be objectives for small groups to do? You know what I mean? Like if we have our just bad cause dad guild, you know what I mean? Are we just going to get run over by the biggest streamer guild, or you know what I mean? Is there going to be meaningful things to do? Well, depending on how many people they have on screen, right, is going to matter, and how many in your area, in your zone.
Yeah.
You know, I think recent games have come out like Battlefield where they try to take it to 128, you know, and then they realize that bigger isn't always better.
Work.
You know,
it doesn't.
That's what I keep saying.
So, any other concerns or just some final thoughts before we get out of here?
So this is my big concern, and it goes back to vehicles. Is whenever there is a game with vehicles, I go back to like Battlefield. Was it Battlefield 2? Or 4? One of the Battlefields where if you're not in a vehicle, like you shouldn't be playing at all. So I want there to be that feeling of we can still stand up to vehicles. We can still be in a vehicle. There's something to take out everything, and there's like a
rock, paper, scissors.
Correct. As opposed to I'm in a vehicle. If you're not in one, you're just going to die every single time, because that takes away that fun aspect. And I can't remember. I can't remember what Battlefield it was, but it was like if you weren't in a vehicle, like you might as well just not play the game.
I'm super excited for this game. Like Scott's been predicting forever. I mean, I hate to admit it, but he was right. It's going to be this mashup of MMO and survival, and we just need something new. We got to. Yes. We need MMO fans. We need something.